everybody. My name is Victor Herrera. I'm a music composer from Spain. And in this short video, I wanted to show you an orchestral track I composed recently. It is called Fortress of Glory. And we are going to go into the mixing session, but not with the purpose of showing you the mixing process, but the composition itself. The reason why I don't go into the MIDI session is because I don't use templates. They are not for me. I tried them before and I didn't like them, so I think this is going to be much useful and easier to explain the process of this track. But hopefully with this video you can see how I usually organize the music I compose, how different sections sound separately, and how everything blends together. So let's go with the logic session. Okay, so here we have the logic session with the mix of this track. I'm going to play the track first, okay? So let's go. Okay, so this is the track. As you can see, it's an orchestral track. It sounds like many things are going on, but it doesn't really have lots of complexity. So if we just put in solo the strings, we could listen to the strings. So basically I made some layering here. The libraries I used are Berlin Strings by Orchestral Tools, AREIA by Audio Imperia, and the Cinematic Studio strings. So I didn't double everything, but mostly the violins. And for example, we have violins first, and we have 3 different patches with the same thing. Okay, I just tweaked a bit because each library responds in a different way, but the real thing is strings work this way in the first part of the track. Okay, so basically first we start with all the strings, but not the first violins. And the first violins enter in the second round, let's say. We have a first round, which is this one. The harmony is pretty simple, all the time the same thing in the first half of the track. After this we modulate to another key, but this is in A minor, if I don't remember wrongly. Telly are doing actually ostinato, okay? But if we amplify here, Telly were doing some ostinato, but the basses, for example, were just doing like the main root notes. Something I usually do in strings when I want to create a complex feeling and I'm working especially with ostinatos is just creating a nice ostinato for the cello or the violas, for example. I usually start with these two different instruments, and then I will just do some similar pattern ostinato, but in a different direction. So it's like the cello are going up and the violas, for example, would be going down. I'm not sure what is happening here. Let's put the cello alone. Yes, they are going like pa 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 pa, just like pa na 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 up. Okay, so the violas, I'm pretty sure I did the opposite thing. Yeah, the violas start high and go down with the ostinato, you see. So the cello and the violas together, they sound this way. They sound pretty complex. If they were doing the same exact thing, it would sound much simpler. And I wanted a complex feeling on this track, so I decided to do this thing. The violins, the second violins, which are these guys here, are doing the same thing as the violas, or maybe not something different, but something pretty similar, if not the same. Actually, they are doing something different. If you just put the second violins, they are doing something super simple, but different to the cello and the violas. In other tracks, I would do probably the same as the violas or something really similar, but it's kind of pretty similar, pretty simple melody, but with kind of ostinato too, let's say. So the first violins that enter later, they will do the same thing as the second violins, but one octave higher. So and it's all the time the same. This is with the violas. Okay, so in this part, okay, let's go to this section here. The same, basses are doing the same thing, just main notes, just putting the sound, the main notes of the rhythm, you know. We want them to just give us a nice impression of the rhythm, but we don't want basses to do anything else here. So they are going to do this. Dun, 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 dun. And yes, they changed there, but cello, they are doing the same, but octave higher. Here all the strings are doing the same, but except the violins that will do something more dynamic, but in the same way. So similar, to give sense to this part. These are the violas. And violins. Let's see the second violins first, what they do. They just implement some dynamic in this part. Dynamic, I mean not in the sense of dynamic like fortissimo. No, they just adopt different rhythm to make this part fresh, different to. We don't want all the strings to be doing pam 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 pam. It would sound boring. So if we make the violins do this thing, I think we can offer many more things here. Okay, so let's go with the next part for the strings, which is this one. and they repeat it. Okay, so again, the basses are going to do always the same thing here. Really small variations in the rhythm, just to give it more dynamic. Celli, let's see. Sorry, celli. Kind of similar ostinato to the first, but in the new key. It's not the same, of course, but it's pretty similar. Violas. They do something really similar, but not the same. That's why it sounds more complex too. At some points there are some thirds in the violas that make it sound much more complex. It's the same idea than in the beginning of the track, where the celli were going up and the violas were going down, so the ostinatos were pretty similar but not the same and with different directions, so it makes more sound, more feeling of complexity in the track. Violins too, they do, I think it's here where we change. I think it's exactly the same thing as the violas, so let's see. Yeah, it's the same thing, just one octave higher. So let's see the first violins, if we add them here. Exactly the same thing, but one octave higher. So violas do one thing, violins too do that thing that the violas do, but one octave higher. And the first violins just double the second violins, but one octave higher. So we have 3 octaves doing the same ostinato exactly. But with the celli and the basses, which sounds much bigger because they are lower also, in a lower register, so it sounds pretty big in general. Sorry, pretty big. The whole strings sound pretty big, like this. Okay, so these are the strings for this track. If we go now with brass, let's see what I did in the brass. Okay, so this is the first half of the track, and as you can see we have bass trombones, horns doing the melody, and horns 2 and 4 are doing just some kind of rhythm, not ostinato but rhythm. This is for the next section, the legato horns. We have trombones doing the same thing as the horns 2 and 4, and we have then a tuba, just to make the sound bigger in general, because it's doing a legato, you will see now. And we have trumpets, because I really like trumpets in this kind of tracks to give the sense, the feeling of more velocity, more speed in the track, more complexity also, and they are just doing some kind of staccatissimo. So the bass trombones, let's go with these guys. Just basically doing the root note with its own rhythm, something really simple, really. It doesn't have anything. Let's leave the horns for a bit later, the horns 1 and 3. Let's go with these horns. They are doing the chords, just 2 notes, okay? Because there are two horns here. I decided to go with just normal configuration of orchestra. So we have 4 horns, 1 and 3 will do the melodies, and 2 and 4 will just do harmonies or whatever I need. And here they follow the same rhythm as the bass trombone. If you listen to this together. They are doing the same. Let's go with the trombones, because they do the same as the horns. They do the same, okay? I just added to make everything sound bigger. Also because the trombones are a bit into the right, the horns are a bit into the left. So I didn't expect really problems with masking or anything in the frequencies because they are panned differently. Let's see the tuba. Just the root notes on legato to make the sound bigger. So, and they follow doing the same thing. Here we have trumpets also. So what do the trumpets? What the trumpets do? Yes, this kind of rhythm. It's pretty simple, pretty similar to what the rest of the brass are doing. It helps with feeling of complexity, but it's not complex at all. As you can see, the brass, let's say bass trombones, horns 2 and 4, the rest of the trombones, and also the tuba are doing, no, the tuba is going differently, no? But I mean the rest of the section of brass, except the melody, which is done by horns 1 and 3, but the rest of the brass are doing the same thing, same rhythm, same chords, let's say that way, except the trumpets that are doing something really similar to the rest, but not the same, just something more dynamic, more notes, let's say that way. And the whole brass without the melody would be sounding this way, in this part with the trumpets. It's pretty simple. Let's see the melody. The melody is played by horns 1 and 3. We have 2 different patches because I have to separate the articulations to make it sound more realistic. So we have marcato, marcato short, and also staccatissimo. The library I used for the horns here in the melody is Junkie XL brass. Okay, I think they changed their number, and let me see how it is called right now, but I think it's Tom Holkenborg brass, which is the name of Junkie XL. They changed the name for this, so okay, that's the brass I used for the melodies in the horns. But for the rest of the, for the rest of the brass I use Berlin brass by Orchestral tools. Okay, so what do these guys do? Let's see. Pretty simple melody. So this is what It's really similar to the first section, it just changes the melody in the horns. We are doing now only legato, it's different kind of melody, not too martial like before. Before we have... And now... But the same is pretty similar, the rhythms are pretty similar. Now the trumpets are a bit more just playing in some specific points, as you can see. Here we had continuously the trumpets playing. And the rest of the section in the brass, the rest of the brass section, I mean, is doing similar kind of rhythms than before. Let's mute the trumpets and let's mute the melody. It's pretty similar, maybe it changes a bit, but nothing really important. So these are the brass and the strings together. Let's see. This second section is probably less aggressive, but I thought it helps with relaxing, and it gives us something new, something different, so we don't get bored. This is just 1 minute track, so I couldn't really get people bored in 1 minute, okay? So that's why I changed here, because I didn't feel continuing with this kind of rhythm, this kind of melodies for a whole minute would be interesting. But if we added this different thing, which is slower maybe, even when there's no tempo changes, but the kind of ostinatos, the kind of melodies mostly, and a change in the harmonies, it helps with something different. So that's what I did, and I think it works. Let's go with the woodwinds. Okay, so woodwinds. What we have here? We have bassoons, we have clarinets, we have contrabassoon, an English horn, flutes, just some runs, 2 oboes, and a piccolo. Okay, so woodwinds sound this way. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty similar to the strings. We have bassoons and contrabassoons. Okay, bassoons are doing, I think, what Telly were doing. Actually, they are doing that. So, bassoons are doing that. contrabassoons are doing what the basses in the strings were doing, just the root notes, showing the rhythm exactly how it is. If not exactly, pretty similar. Exactly the same. We have also clarinets that are doing what violins were doing, but of course in a lower register. I really like how clarinets sound in their lowest register. So okay, we have an English horn which is doing the melody. It's doing what the horns are doing. Why? I just liked it, and let's say I wanted something with different register also in that melody. To just personal preference, I wouldn't say there is a real reason apart from that one. Flutes, what are? Same thing as the violins. Oboes first, the oboe 1, let's say that way, it's doing the same thing as the violins. Oboe 2 is doing an ostinato. I would say it's the same one that the violas. And the piccolo are just going with the rams. And only with some of the rams. Let's say, for example, here. Just to emphasize these parts. What's happening here? Why I get this part simpler than, for example, in the strings or in the brass? Because I really like how the woodwinds emphasize some kind of high notes. That's why I wanted only the main beats to be emphasized with the strings. If you listen, I think it works much better than if the woodwinds were doing exactly the same as the strings, for example, or the brass. So that's how woodwinds work. This part is pretty similar method. We are doing something really close to the strings and the brass, just with subtle differences. So what libraries did I use in woodwinds? Berlin woodwinds, basically, except from the rams, which are scene samples Holy woodwinds. The same of the woodwinds are from Berlin woodwinds. So let's go with the percussion, which is the last part. Okay, it's all the time the same thing, similar rhythms, similar configuration. So what we have here, we have snares, we have Gran Cassas, which are big drums, let's say, low drums, piatti crash, suspended cymbals, and timpani. We have some rolls, like in the beginning. And the hits. Okay, the hits are just setting the main root notes, like the basses, the contrabassoons, the tuba, but with simpler rhythm, because the tail of the timpani if I were playing faster timpani, the tails of this instrument, of the sound of this instrument, could make everything sound much moody. So I prefer to go with not too fast rhythm with it. Gran Cassas, exactly the same, but even with slower rhythm, because it's lower than. Gran Cassas come from damage 2 by Heaviosity, which is a great library, but I tweaked the decay of the. Let's see, where are you? Here. If I load this instrument, the Gran Cassas, we have them here organic, okay, and we have solo Gran Cassas. If we load this, it sounds, I don't know why. Okay, sorry. As you can see, the tail of this sound is super long. So I wanted to avoid this kind of tails, so I tweaked this to make it sound much shorter, okay? I think this is important to avoid that kind of long tails that make everything sound really moody in this kind of tracks that are super fast and you need to include that low percussion. So that's what I did. The timpani I used come from Spitfire Audio, Zimmer Percussion. So if you load this, we have hard, soft sticks, and I used the soft rolls with sound with the mod wheel. Sound really nice, and also the soft sticks. Really nice. So really nice sound for timpani in my opinion. So these are the timpani and the timpani rolls come from that, the Gran Cassas from damage 2, and the rest of the percussion I used come from Cineperc by Cine Samples. I really like the snares here, the piatti crash, the suspended cymbals, everything here in this library is completely perfect. It's really good. The glockenspiel, the xylophone, everything, all the melodic instrumentation in percussion, the metals. It's really a wonderful library. Totally recommend it for percussion, orchestral percussion. Okay. So basically the snares are here doing some kind of fast rhythm to give that feeling of speed of fast track. Piatti crash only in the main places to emphasize. If you see, we have suspended cymbals, then the piatti crash, and this all comes with a timpani rolls. So the whole thing come here. And sometimes I also emphasize this with Gran Cassas rolls. So everything sounds really impressive, I think, when you want to emphasize this kind of things. So that's what percussion does here. What happens in this part? Okay, in the second part, as I told you, I wanted something slower, with that feeling of slower. So, for example, the timpani get faster rhythm than in the beginning, if you listen here. And you would say, but you said slower. Yes, and it's slower because I removed the snares, which were the ones giving that feeling of speed in the first part. If you listen here, later we don't have the snares, so everything sounds subtly slower, okay? And finally, we have just one Harp doing some kind of glissandi, just to emphasize this kind of swells or crescendo in the percussion. Something like that, nothing else. We don't have more Harp in this track. So, this is the track. I hope you found this video interesting. I hope you liked it. You can, of course, ask me anything. You can suggest me anything. And let's see you in the next one. Goodbye.